Hello, good day, peoples of the internet. I thought I would come on today and talk about, I guess, the slavery matrix and the toxic patriarchy and where we're headed toward the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, and the sacred mother. And originally, when I was learning about what I call the slavery matrix, because that's what the Godsource called it to me about probably 7 years ago, when I was starting to deconstruct culture or society, the way of existing that I had been programmed into. And it mentioned the idea of a slavery matrix to me. And I was kind of like, what does that even mean? And basically it was saying that, they consciously programmed you to basically be a slave in the matrix, to produce until you die. And I was terrified when I first, was receiving this information, and I was thinking, how is this possible? Because, we're not slaves, slavery happened in the past and things like that. And the Godsource was adamant that it's not in the past, that in the past it was obvious, it's less obvious today, and it's a mode of functioning. It's a matrix system that takes place on it's a triangular way of existing, where very few are at the top of the triangle and the majority are at the bottom. And that's what makes it a slavery matrix. And that in a slavery matrix, no one's happy, no one's in truth. And I remember at this time period that it was telling me that we were functioning on a very little part of what we could function on as human beings. And it was kind of showing me this peephole, and it showed me this eye looking through a peephole, and it was looking at a rainbow through this peephole. And it was literally only focusing on a tiny, tiny bit of the rainbow, because when you look through a peephole, you can literally only see a tiny bit of it. And it said, right now we're focusing on the dark side of the rainbow. And it was saying that we have this whole rainbow that we can access, and we just aren't doing it in this time period. In the slavery matrix, we're focusing on toxic dynamics, and we're focusing on power, control, and force. And we're focusing on rebellion. We're focusing on tantruming. It's a tantrum program. That's something that came to me even recently. And I will do a video on the tantrum program as well. But the slavery matrix works off a toxic patriarchy. And the reason why it's a toxic patriarchy is because the men are at the top and the women are at the bottom. And also at the bottom are vulnerables. So the vulnerable populations are at the bottom as well. So people that are disabled and have uniquenesses that prevent them from being workers in the system. So if you're not a worker in the system, you're treated really badly. You're looked down upon. There's a lot of anger and rage towards you. You don't belong here. All of those mindsets towards these vulnerable populations. And that includes children. That includes people with disabilities or uniquenesses. And that includes the elderly. So those sects aren't producers, and because they're not producers, they're treated poorly. And so much so that it was showing me that people who work with those populations are also paid poorly. So you have teachers, you have people working in old folks' homes, you have people working with people with disabilities and vulnerabilities and uniquenesses, and all not really paid well. And not a lot of money going into those systems. So you hear about old folks' homes that, are just terribly run, and, not very good food, and, a lot of people quitting because it's hard work and you're not paid well. Well, why aren't they pouring money into these systems? Because they aren't the producers. And so that's a very toxic masculine way of existing. Remember that the masculine is the right side of the body, and the right side of the body is all about production and action. So when a society is based off production and action, people who aren't producing and taking action aren't treated well, and looked down upon, rejected, not supported. And so that eyeball, in that time period, I was seeing that one eye, right? And they always show, like, on the money, you got that triangle, literally the slavery matrix, with the eyeball at the top. And it always shows that one eyeball, right? And that one eyeball is actually, because a triangle in esoterics means masculine, right? So, and that one eyeball at the top of the eyeball is the masculine eyeball. So literally the masculine eyeball is the only one that's available in the slavery matrix, or in that type of a culture, or that type of society. And the Godsource is like, basically, where's the other eyeball? Where's the other eye, right? Most beings have two eyes, right? Where's the other eyeball? And it's saying, it's like we're sleeping with one eye open, right? And what does it mean when you're sleeping with one eye open? You're literally afraid. You're scared, right? Panic, fear, terror, which is also a foundation of the slavery matrix. Panic, fear, terror, that you're not going to be able to rise the matrix, that you're not good enough, that you aren't producing enough. Work, and don't ever think of anything else except for working. Be terrified that you won't have money, that you won't have a job. That's all part of the slavery matrix, and that's all part of the toxic masculine. And when I was doing this work, I was trying to find a wound space. I'll talk about the first wound space. When I was first finding a wound space, I was down in my belly and I was feeling some sadness. And I saw this little being down there, and she was crying, and she was hunched over, and she was tiny, and she was crying. And I said, like, what are you? And she said, I'm the feminine. And I was like, oh, what the heck? And she said, she's crying because she's been denied. She's been unexercised, not seen, and that she was basically dying. And what the Godsource told me is that if the feminine dies in a society, everything dies, because the feminine is the creator. It's the birther, and a society that has no feminine is going to kill itself in the end. And I was like, oh wow, like, that's terrifying, right? And so that was the beginning of me recognizing that the feminine was being unacknowledged and not validated. So I did another healing around that time period where I was dropping down into my heart. And as I was dropping down into my heart, I could feel everything slow down. And I was like, whoa, what the heck? What is happening? And that's what it said to me, is the feminine is the slowing down. And down there, I accessed a part of me that said, I am worthy of existing. I have a right to exist. And when I accessed that space inside of me, and it said, as soon as you were born, as soon as you came into this existence, you had a right to exist. That it's not the humans that are going to give you that permission and that right. It was the Godsource who created you that gave you the right to exist. It gave you the permission as soon as it brought you in here. So I have a right to exist. And when I access that space inside myself, I could see this eyeball open in my heart center. And I was like, what the heck? And it was like, that's the feminine eye. That's the other eye. So the masculine eye is up in the third eye. It's up in the masculine part of the body. It's up in the head, right? The feminine eye is down in the heart. It's in the heart center. And that's down in the body, which is the feminine. So it literally has two eyes. And so the left eye is the feminine eye. It comes up from the body. And the right eye is the masculine eye, and it comes from the third eye. So we literally have a feminine eye and a masculine eye that's connected to the masculine eye in the head and the feminine eye in the body. And when we awaken both eyes, then we begin to access like holistic seeing, because we have to be able to see through both eyes. We have to see through the feminine eye and the masculine eye. That's how we need to perceive. That's how we begin to perceive in wholeness. And so the feminine is all what we've forgotten about, what we weren't accessing, is the ability to love ourselves even there, to have compassion for ourselves, to slow down and to companion ourselves when we need it the most. And this society, the slavery matrix, is based off codependency. It's based on you being dependent on the external realm. You being dependent on people in the external realm to meet your needs, to help you, to assist you, to fix you, save you, heal you. And being codependent in relationships, and codependent in all of our needs being met. Really. So we're depending on our parents to meet all of our needs. We're depending on our partner to meet all of our needs. We're depending on our work to meet all of our needs. And that's the toxic masculine. And the reality is that's not true. That is not true. You're dependent on yourself to meet your own needs. You have everything inside of you to meet your own needs. You have the medicine inside of you. You have the love, safety, and healing inside of you. And that's the part that matters the most, is that you're accessing your own love. But the only way you can access that is by slowing down and reaching inside of you instead of outside of you. Because if you're depending on the outside, it's going to fail you, right? The Godsource told me something really interesting one time, and it said, trust isn't for the outside world, Lisa. We can depend to a certain degree on the outside world, but we can read the outside world. It'll show us who it is, but you cannot trust it. And the reason you can't trust it is because it's outside of your cell. Right? Your cell form. It's outside of yourself. And the only part that's in your control is your own cell form. It's your own cells. It's your own self. Right? So depending on it, you're depending on something external to yourself that has its own path, its own lessons, its own program, its own hopes, needs, desires, its own nourishment, its own safety, and it's following its own path. So it's bound to betray you, or what's going to feel like betrayal inside of you. It's bound to choose from its own authenticity. And so the key is not trusting it. The key is trusting you. So when you learn to trust you, you can never be rejected, abandoned, or denied, because you're always there for you. You can have a human experience where it feels like it in the external realm because somebody left, but in reality, they're not rejecting, abandoning, and denying you. They're literally just leaving. And that's part of movement, which is a natural part in the external realm, right? Things move. And so, and if they have to make a choice from their soul, and that feels like a betrayal to you because you don't like it, you don't support it, you don't get behind it, you don't need them to give you peace. You don't need them to stop doing that. You don't need them to make another choice. You need to love yourself into wholeness. And that's how we collapse the slavery matrix. That's how we collapse the toxic masculine. And that's how we begin to awaken the sacred masculine. And the sacred feminine is the part that's slowing down, companioning you, having compassion for you, loving you, and getting creative. And that's why if the feminine dies, a being, a species dies, because you can't get creative. And honestly, for the past, what the Godsource tells me, 27,500 years, we haven't gotten very creative. And people's like, well, what? We got creative since the industrial era, the 1950s. Like, look how far we've come. Yeah, but we're only getting creative in the slavery matrix. We're only looking through that peephole, that one eye, the masculine eye at the side of the rainbow. What we're not doing is stepping back and looking through both eyes at the whole rainbow, which there's millions of choices that we can make that we don't even know we can make. There's millions of creations we can do that we don't even know we can do, because we've been trapped in this matrix and didn't even know we were trapped in it. And it's been not just, on the earth plane, it's been around our whole galaxy. From what I've been taught, it's a mode of functioning that's been around our whole galaxy. And so it's something that we're shifting as a galaxy. And it's an experience that we consciously, I guess I'm going to say unconsciously chose at one point in time, way back in the history of living beings. We unconsciously chose to drop ourselves down into the slavery matrix, because it's a very low frequency system, because it's based off of panic, fear, terror, disconnect, toxic dynamics, power, control, force. And it's only one side of it's only the masculine eye. It's only the upward triangle. And what we need to access is the downward triangle. And so and that's the feminine triangle. So when I access that eye in my heart center, I had already accessed this eye up in the third eye, which is the masculine triangle. I'd already accessed that. But what I hadn't accessed is the downward triangle, that at the base of that triangle is the second eye, and that's the feminine eye. Now, in esoteric knowledge, when the two triangles come together, they create the chariot, right? It's a system of existence. It's a symbol. It's a sacred symbol of the two triangles coming together, this way and that way. And when they spin, that's how they create the chariot. And the spinning means movement. So when they come together, they begin to move. And when they move, they begin to create more access to more choices, to more movement, to more ways of existing. And we're no longer in the stagnation of just one flat triangle. Now we're in movement. And movement is the baseline of this universe. Like, everything moves in this universe. The one thing that's a common denominator is movement in this universe. So we're getting into the flow of the universe. We're no longer in that stagnation energy, which is actually a deathing energy. And disconnected systems feed off of connected systems. So disconnected humans feed off connected humans. How we get our nourishment is from our connection to the Godsource, and our connection to our body, and our connection to nature. So literally, our connection to nature is the feminine. And so when we connect to the feminine, we're able to exchange life force frequency, right? And And the Godsource showed me at one point in time that this universe is actually feminine in nature. And it's feminine in nature. I guess I'll go into the story of the universe. So it's a short story, but it's a very interesting story. And I'll probably touch on it in another video into the future. But so what the Godsource showed me about this universe is that in the beginning, there was just a matrix of cells, a matrix of atoms, right? And it was still, it was just sitting there. And at one point in time, the Godsource had a thought. And the thought was, do I exist? And when the Godsource had the thought, do I exist? There was movement. It began movement. And when movement began, that's where we get the Big Bang. And what happened was, to answer its own question, the Godsource had to separate off a part of itself in order to see itself. And what it separated off of itself was the feminine. And the feminine became this universe, which we call life. And in reality, like, we already know that she's a feminine. We say life is a bitch, right? Why? Because it unfolds how it wants to, because it's uncontrollable. It's in its own unfolding, right? So we already know it's a feminine, right? So, and it's a feminine because it's a creative source. It's a creator. That's what it does. The universe is creation, right? And so the universe itself is feminine. It's feminine in nature, right? And so the Godsource separated off the universe. It separated off the feminine aspect, the creative aspect, so that it could watch itself, so that it could answer its own question, do I exist? And literally, that's the question that the humans, there's a car driving by. That's a big truck, actually. That's also the question that we ask ourselves, because we're an aspect of the universe. We're an aspect of the Godsource. And so our question to ourselves as a living being is, do I exist? Right? And when we answer that question, we answer it for the Godsource, right? So almost all the pathway that humans go through is a version of what the Godsource is going through to answer its own questions. And so, and some people question me on that. They that's a hard concept for them to believe, is that the Godsource is a living being, number one, that we're inside of, we're a part of it. And that number two, that it doesn't have all the answers. It does and it doesn't. It went through a process itself of trying to figure it out, which is why us living in its likeness are going through a process of trying to figure out ourselves. And so that's in the likeness of God, right? Of the Godsource. So, and just like the Godsource had to separate off the feminine, the universe, to look at itself, the humans are also in a process of separation. We've been separated from our own selves, from our own souls. It's one of the choices here. We can do that. And we chose to do that at some point in time, or at least this galaxy chose to do it, and we're inside this galaxy, right? So we're getting the experience of what it's like to be in a separated self, and then learning to reintegrate ourselves, and then learning or consciously choosing to be in a whole self and to exist from within wholeness. So one with nature, right? And so the feminine, another feminine aspect is the unknown. That's the creative space, the void, the space between. That is a feminine aspect. It's like the womb, right? It's the infinite potential can come into that space. But that space terrifies us because when we get in that space, we have a mindset of deathing. We have, oh my God, it's dark. Oh my God, I don't have the answers. I don't know what's coming. And we go into freak out mode because we haven't learned to companion ourselves even there, to find safety even there, to love ourselves even there. There's an airplane going by if you're hearing some background sounds. And so the unknown part, the void, is the feminine aspect of this universe, and the masculine aspect is the form. So the things that have already been created are the masculine aspect. So form stuff is the masculine of this universe. And what has yet to be created is the feminine aspect of this universe, which I believe is kind of, some of those quantum questions that we've been asking as human species, like sort of this idea of like dark matter, and what is that? What is this part that's taking up so much space? What's in the space between? And what the Godsource told me is the space between is part of the universe. It's like part of the pathway. It's not nothing. It's filling up space. It's the part of the path where, where you haven't seen the next tree, or where you're not at the waterfall yet. It's a hard part of the path. It's a natural part of a pathway. It's necessary here. It's a space holder, right? It's not like you're not nowhere. You're somewhere even there. And that's what can begin to collapse those fears of being in the void or the unknown space. And it's really important that we do that, because that's where we access the creativity. That's where we access infinite potentials, choices that we didn't even know we had, the top side of the rainbow. And in our society, in the slavery matrix, they teach you the only way to get stuff is by working, and you got to get money, and then you got to hoard stuff and have stuff, and stuff's going to keep you safe. And that's an illusion. That is not real. What we're actually looking for is on the feminine side. And on the feminine side, what we're looking for is feeling states. We're looking like, what do you think that money's going to get you? What do you think that car is going to get you? What do you think that mansion's going to get you? What you think it's going to get you is peace, comfort, stability, joy, happiness, playfulness, right? It's feeling states that we're actually trying to create. And we think if we get that thing, then finally we're going to give ourselves permission to feel that. But oftentimes people get it and they don't feel it, and they feel even more empty because it was never going to be that thing. And I don't have to wait for that thing. I can just give that to myself right now. I'm just going to give myself love right now. I'm just going to give myself playfulness right now. I'm just going to give myself wholeness right now. The right to exist. The right to exist in wholeness. That's a permission I give myself, and that's a permission, it's an ability that the Godsource gave me at birth that I need to find, and I need to give myself permission to exist within. It's a position of existence. And that comes when we balance the sacred masculine with the sacred feminine. When they're in balance and we access them, they become a whole. And that wholeness, we begin to access the sacred mother, the mother of all. And the mother is this universe. So in this universe, the feminine must come first. And that's where we're going wrong when we put the masculine first at the top of the hierarchy. No, the feminine must come first. That's a code. It's a piece of information that the Godsource tells me over and over again. Why? Because this universe is feminine. And so we have to access the feminine first, the compassion first, the slowing down first, the safety first. And then the action. And then supporting ourselves to take action. That's how we get to aligned existing. Aligned existence means that you're in alignment with your sacred heart. All parts of the two eyes are in alignment with the sacred heart. You're in alignment with the Godsource, but you're also in alignment with nature. The Godsource being the masculine and nature being the feminine. We have to be in alignment with both. And when we're in alignment with both, when we're accessing our own soul, the peacefulness of the soul space, the 0 point, then we begin to access aligned choices, aligned opportunities, aligned ways of existing. And that's what the shift is that we're doing in this time period. This is what we're beginning to remember. And when we remember this, we are going to get so magical, because when you're in alignment, the God source gets behind you. It supports the creativity. When you consciously create from alignment, the God source has your back. The universe has your back. And you start to create all kinds of magical things. And that's what we're moving into in this time period, which I call this time period freedom. So we're breaking through the false glass ceiling of the slavery matrix to remember that we can access freedom, and freedom comes by accessing the feminine within first. Love, safety, slowing down. And the slavery matrix doesn't want you to be free, because when you're free, there's no slaves. There's no slavers and no slaves. And the matrix no longer gets fed, and the matrix eventually dies. It can't be fed without your light. It can't be fed without your program running to feed it. And that's what we're collapsing in this time period. So that's a top level. It's like the deepest top level of esoteric knowledge and wisdom, spiritual knowledge and wisdom, aligned knowledge and wisdom that's coming through the humans at this time period. We're remembering the truth. And I know a part of your soul remembers this truth. So it's easier to get into an alignment with this and clear that old programs, patterns, modes of functioning. Last year was the year of the snake. This year is the year of the fire horse. We're literally shedding the skin of the snake. That's what we were doing over the past year. And we're starting to get into the fire horse, where the fire horse takes sacred action. And when you take that sacred action, which means aligned action, when you take action from wholeness, then it's supported and it goes fast. We're able to do all kinds of magical things, all kinds of aligned creations. And this was foreseen. This was foreseen by lots of seers, by Aboriginal prophecies, and other seers through time that foresee this time period where we're going to begin to act from sacred action, where we're going to take sacred action to create a new mode of functioning and a new way of existing, and that we're going to begin to live in alignment with nature and the planet. We're going to consider nature and the planet, because they're our brothers and sisters. They're our buddies, right? They were created of the same dust that we were created of. We're all one. When we help each other, when we work in oneness, when we work in alignment, when we consider each other, then that is what helps the planet. Sorry if just a part of my face was there. I was right into it. So my hand was moving. And so that's what it's looking for from us. It's looking for us. The prophecy is that in this time period, well, one of the many prophecies is that we're going to take the charred path first. That's the asphalt. We're going to follow the asphalt, build the cities, build the computers, AI, and we're going to forget about nature. But the other pathway is the green path. And that's the natural path. It's that, anything that a computer can do, I can do. It's actually based off a human. We're trying to shortcut the abilities of a human. And nothing good happens in a shortcut. We lose our gifts and our abilities, and we lose the practicing of, connecting into our own souls, hearing the Godsource directly, being able to actually listen to each other's minds, which we could do in the past and we're probably going to do into the future, where there is no question of like, what's the truth? Because you're going to read it. And we are already reading a truth from our bellies. So the belly, in the body, we have a second brain. And science is even beginning to show that there's neuro tissue in the belly. And that's the female brain. So we have this brain, which is the masculine brain. And then we have the stomach brain, which is the feminine brain. So just like we have two eyes, we have two brains, right? The feminine brain, it reads frequencies. So that's where your intuition comes from, right? And frequencies don't lie. They can't lie. So your stomach is the most accurate brain. The masculine brain is a data keeper. It's a data brain. So it works off of probabilities. So the probability of something happening. So it's going to tell you, well, you've gone left at this corner, 90 other times and it's been good. So just go left. Whereas the stomach brain saying it's reading the frequencies of the moment, and it's like, don't go left, because it's reading that up there, there's a car accident or something like that, right? Because it's reading the frequencies around us of the earth plane, right? It's a sensory reader, right? Which is why so many people have stomach issues and feel anxiety in the stomach, because they aren't in alignment with their stomach brain. They aren't in alignment with their intuition, because we've been taught to shut it down, not to listen to it. Only be in the head. Only the head's at the top of the hierarchy, the bodies and the feminines at the bottom. It's garbage. It's stupid. Dominate it. Control it. No, be friendly with it. Make friends with it. We're a whole self, and the whole self has a right to exist, right? When we begin to allow our stomach brain to communicate with us, and we listen to our intuition, and we begin to befriend ourselves and drop into our bodies, we start to get that information like, don't go left. And sure enough, it told the truth, because it tells the truth. It can't lie. It doesn't lie. It's an extremely important part of our bodies and our systems and our modes of functioning. Again, another part, the feminine must come first. The stomach brain must come first, and then we use the data brain, right? So I think that's enough information for today. I'm just going to do a healing and collapse those old programs, old modes of functioning, old ways of existing. So Source God Mother, I acknowledge and accept everything that we've been speaking of so far today, which are the teachings that have been coming in for the past 5 to 7 years. And it's been teaching us about the masculine being the right side of the body, and the feminine being the left side of the body, and the masculine being the head, and the feminine being the body. And we're amalgamating them into one. We're making peace with all parts. We're starting to be friendly with all parts. We're allowing all parts to exist, because we need to be able to access the intuition. We need to be able to access the feeling states. And it's terrifying to access a feeling state if you're not accessing the feminine, because you're just struggling in it alone, fear, panic, terror, and there's no way to help it. But when you begin to access the feminine, I love myself even here, I'm safe even here, I'm whole even here, then you begin to be able to have a connected experience with your emotions. You begin to befriend your emotions, because emotions are information. They're energy in motion. They're information from the body and information from the external realm. They're information from the Godsource. They're like little packages of mail. And I'm just like, no, forget the mail. And the mail's piling up over there. And I have no idea what's going on because I'm not reading the mail. right? No, I need to be able to read the mail, and then I need to be able to send a letter back, right? I need to communicate into it. I need to use it as information, right? And I'm recognizing that the way to awakening the second eye in the heart, the second triangle, the feminine triangle, is by recognizing that I have a right to exist. I have a right to be here. I have a right to slow down. I have a right to love myself into wholeness. I have a right to be birthed, right? I had a right to be birthed. God gave me the right. That isn't something the humans give me. You don't belong because you don't fit into the toxic patriarchy or the slavery matrix. You know, you're colored, you're a female, you're old, you're young, right? You're not in the right genders. What? No. I have a right to exist in my uniqueness. I was born unique, and I have a right to exist in my uniqueness. I don't need someone else's permission. I need my own. And when I give it to myself, I can't be rejected, abandoned, and denied because the medicine is inside of me. And the medicine is my own love. It's the love of my soul, and the soul loves me no matter what I experience. Right? Because all of my experiences are information for the Godsource. It's the Godsource seeing, who am I? Do I exist? Yeah, it exists, and it has a right to exist, and we're showing it exists, and we're showing it what it's like to exist as a human being. And the tree's showing it how to exist as a tree, and the grass is showing it how to exist as grass, and the bugs are showing it how to exist as bugs, and it's got all these eyeballs all over the place looking at existence. Not all things are conscious of the Godsource, but the Godsource is conscious of all things. The Godsource is all things. That includes animate and inanimate things. So the Godsource is as much the chair as it is you, because it's inside of it. And the chair isn't conscious of the Godsource, but the Godsource is conscious of the chair. That's where we're gifted. We have special abilities because we're conscious of the Godsource, and the Godsource is conscious of us. And together we can work together to come into that oneness and that wholeness. When you come into oneness and wholeness, when you access the masculine and the feminine, and you make oneness between the head and the body, and you make oneness between the left and right sides of your bodies, and you begin to use both eyes, you begin to access the wholeness. And as you begin to access the wholeness and that healing center, that part of you that's connected to the Godsource, and you access the soul, and the soul and the human become one, you begin to emit the essence of the Godsource. The Godsource can come through you and into this universe that's it, and it can affect its own self. And that's why we're doing it all. And Source God Mother, I clear, cleanse, and heal those old modes of functioning, those old ways of existing, those mindsets, those ways of believing, those ways of seeing, those trigger points, those contracts, binds, barriers, those internal dynamics, those external dynamics, those mind fucks that were given to us by the external realm, by the slavery matrix. I clear all of that from my mind, body, spirit, and soul. I clear it from my DNA and RNA, my cellular and energetic structures, past the DNA and RNA and into the God space of first creation. I clear binds, barriers, contracts, modes of functioning, ways of existing. I clear ways of perceiving. I clear old programming that we're ready to disintegrate back to dust. I clear pain spaces in the body. I clear debris that we've been holding in the body. I clear darkness that's been held in the body, and I push it out through my hands and feet, and I neutralize, harmonize, and alchemize it. I break it down with my body. Once it's inside of me, I can heal it. That's where we have power. Once we ingest it, we can heal it. If I've seen it through my eyes, if I've seen it through my ears, if I ate it through my mouth, if I've ingested it through my skin, I can heal it because my body is the healer. My body is the medicine. And I choose to give medicine into all the spaces that we spoke of today. And I choose to give myself the right to access these spaces, to remember, and to begin to utilize these spaces as I'm moving forward in those good ways. I disintegrate back to dust the old DNA and RNA and initiate the new and reconfigure the new DNA and RNA for best and highest well-being of the systems within me and the systems around me. I clear, cleanse, and heal all drama, karma, trauma, pull out the dharma, neutralize, purify, cleanse, and heal from the cellular, energetic, and magnetic structures, and from the subconscious, unconscious, and conscious minds, pulling all of that through to oneness, to wholeness, to peace, to truth, to love. Welcoming in those helper frequencies and those helper beings to continue to help me to access these spaces and to clear nausea, lightheadedness, panic, fear, terror from these spaces, old programs that have been trying to barriering me from accessing this truth. I clear them all now, recognizing that as I clear these things, it's not like we do access the void, right? And you're like, oh my God, I'm going to disappear, or I'm going to float into nothing. No, you're surrounded. Remember the space between, it's like a womb. The baby's not just floating in nothing, it's being held, right? We're being held in that space. And if we can hold that space long enough, answers will come. Creative answers will come. Solutions will come. And we can trust that. And I release through the children and up through the ancestral webs, past lifetimes and their webs, and for the collective universal who are open to it at this time, including all planetary systems and on all sides of the veil, in this universe and in the multiverses. I quantum forgive that we didn't know this before, that I didn't have this information. I quantum forgive that even holding this information is very difficult for a human being, and that's okay because we've been heavily programmed the other way. I've been only looking at that tiny bit of the rainbow, the dark side of the rainbow with one eye open. I don't want to do that. That's weird. No, thank you. I'm done that now. Right? I want to use both eyes and I want to see the whole rainbow because there's so much magic. There's so much easy ways of doing things that aren't shortcutting but are in alignment. There's so many things we can create when we give ourselves the permissions to do so. And that's what we're moving into. Yay humans, yay Earth, yay galaxy, yay universe. Let's go, let's do this. Yeah? Let's evolve together. Let's heal together. You know? Let's get to that magical place together because we are all one, right? We all have our parts to do. And awakening is part of it. Even holding the information is you doing the part. That's you altering the system from within. And that's how we alter a system from within. And I purify back to the Godsource origins. And I welcome those healed helpers, those beings of light, those doctors, healers, and nurses in all realms of existence to continue to purify and alchemize these spaces and drop me into those original blueprints, those original codes, and to continue these healings until completed. And to do so in the gentlest way possible for each body, for each unique blueprint. And we give so much gratitude and so much thankfulness to those helper beings, those helper frequencies that are here with us, helping us, guiding us, our ancestors, the people who've crossed before, those who are, they're literally in the angelic realms, but they're the ones who know you. They know you. They had the wounds as a human being as well. And they're holding loving space as you heal those wounds. You're the one in the now moment that can heal the wounds of the past and the future. And they're encouraging you. They're holding loving space for you. You know, they're clapping, you know, from the etheric realms, right? They're proud of you, right? They're supporting you. You're doing what they couldn't do. They love the bits out of you, but also we're in a free will existence. So they can't help you unless you ask. And they can't help you if you don't know they exist. If you don't even know they're there, how are you going to listen to them? How are you going to hear them? How are you going to get guidance from them? Right? How are you going to feel loved and held by them? Right? But they're there. They're always there, just like your guardian angel that all of us have. Everybody was given a guardian angel. We access it through our bellies. We drop really deep down into our bellies, and you can access the love of the angel. And we were all given angels because the Godsource knew this was going to be a hard existence. And it knew that because we're in a universe that unfolds of its own collective will. So all the free wills come together to unfold the universe. We have collective free will in this universe. So all the free wills are what control the unfolding, which is even out of the Godsource's will. So the Godsource can just watch it, right? And love it. And get the information from it, right? And that's why we want to get into an alignment. And that's why we want our change to affect the whole change. And to be able to communicate into these spaces. So thank you, helper beings, for here with us, helping us, guiding us, loving us, nudging us. We really appreciate you. And we recognize that we're working together. The angels, the ancestors, and the elementals, all working together, including the elements, air, earth, water, fire, and the ethers. Right? I love you. You're my family. We're all part of the same whole. Right? They're aspects of us. Right? Awesome, amazing, right? And we clear, cleanse, and heal all of that now through all quantum fields, and we're opening to receive for best and highest well-being. With the most ultimate of love and gratitude, we choose this. So I choose this and breathe. And Source God Mother, I ask that you immediately evolute our systems for best and highest well-being of the systems within us and the systems around us, including those frequencies of our feet. Immediately evolute those frequencies of our feet so that as we ground down into our feet, we have all the frequencies that we need in this now moment to continue to help us to exist in those good ways, to get that comfort and trigger that vagus nerve, to love ourselves even here, to feel steady and strong and like we're held within the human body and we're held within the Godsource body. We're always safe. And Source God Mother, please also really root me into this universe, my body into this universe and into the multiverses, so that we're exchanging that life force frequency, that information, knowledge, and life codes. I clear, cleanse, and heal all of that now through all quantum fields, and I'm opening to receive for best and highest well-being. With love and gratitude, I choose this. Oh, there's a little squirrel. Cute. We're getting some squirrel medicine. I love it. So I should also mention that as I'm talking, I'm speaking from my filter, from my human filter. So the Godsource is going to speak to me using my filter, because that's all I have to use. That's the codes, the brain, the mind that it's going to go through is what I've seen, what I have experienced, my vocabulary, what I know. It's going to use imagery that I'm going to understand, And so I'm speaking from that, but I'm not just speaking from that. I'm offering codes underneath of that, information, frequency underneath of that. And I'm offering the frequency that was offered to me. And so if you need to change words so that you feel comfortable, or concepts so that you feel comfortable, feel free to do so. I'm speaking from mine. You can use your own. If you don't like my perspective or my examples or my vocabulary, feel free to find another healer. There's lots of healers coming out right now sharing their information, and their information came through their filter system. They're a human being, and they're doing the best they can to impart these big informations into words using their own metaphors and their own experiences and their own ways of seeing and perceiving. So that's why there's so many of us coming in, because there's not just one, there's plenty of us, so find one that works for you, right? We're out here just doing it because this is us singing our own song, right? I'm doing it because it's part of my purpose and it feeds my soul. I'm a creator being and I'm a creative. And when I do this, it feeds my soul to nourish this earth plane, and to nourish my soul family, and to offer information that was offered through me to help me first and foremost in my ancestral lineage, but any others that are open to it, any others that are looking for the information that I hold and can understand it the way that I'm imparting it. So, yeah. Also, just check into yourself. How do you feel right now? Notice how you feel when you're receiving information. Notice how you feel when you clear the information. I notice a lot of people are very like, lots of questions when they're receiving the information. And then once the healing's done, once we do the release, they're just like blank-minded. Like, I don't even remember what I was going to ask. I just feel light and peaceful. Amazing. Awesome. That means that you have growth and expansion. That means that you've cleared something out of the debris cup, right? And once it's gone, you don't have to do it again. So yay, yay us. And if you feel lightheaded or nauseous, just ground to your feet. And sometimes people feel headachy because they're using the brain so hard. And the key is to step back from the brain and let the soul get the information and then integrate the information. But if you're feeling headachy, just use the technique of scraping the skull, pull the energy down, let it out. Or another technique that I forgot to put into the video yesterday, and it's a very simple technique, is that you just visualize yourself on top of yourself, like above yourself, putting like a pressure system, like, you know, a needle. When you're pushing a needle down, you're going to push that down and you're just going to push the energy out through your hands and your feet. All the extra energy that's being stimulated in us by the ionic atmosphere being extra agitated in this time period, you're just going to push that extra energy out of your hands and feet. Anything that you need will remain. Anything you don't need will be cleared. And you can trust that if you miss something this time, believe me, it comes back around, because the universe works like a corkscrew. Everything comes back around. Everything's circular. It goes around and around, right? It's going to come back around. It'll come back around. If it's important, it'll come back around. And you can trust that, which means relax. Relax. Let it go. It's okay. You're going to be okay. I love myself even here. I'm going to companion myself here. I'm not alone. I have me, right? I have the feminine side and I'm awakening her. I have the body, and the body loves me as much as I love it. And just continuing to practice this as you move forward. Feel free to watch the video more than once. I have a lot of information in this video. So I will see you all next time. Lots of love from me to you. Have a fantastic, fabulous day.